My Sunday dinner with David and Chloe was supposed to be easy, just catching up, you know? But then David flashed his phone a whole renovation plan, costing a fortune, expecting me to pay. My quiet no turned into this huge, awful silence, and a deep worry started bubbling up. He just smirked, thinking he had me. Little did he know what was coming. Before we continue, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? I'd love to know. Sitting across from my son, David, and his wife, Chloe, at our usual Italian place, Mama Lina's, felt different that Sunday. Usually, it's a nice, easy time, just catching up, you know? David, he's my only child, and I love him to bits, always have. But sometimes, well, his expectations feel heavier than a brick. I'm Eleanor, by the way, just Eleanor. A widow for 10 years now, living in the quiet, cozy home Arthur and I built together. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable, always careful with our money. Arthur, bless his soul, taught me a lot about being smart with finances. He always said, Ellie, make sure you're always standing on your own 2 feet, no matter what. Those words, they've always stuck with me, especially lately. David and Chloe, they live in a much bigger, fancier house than mine, in a newer part of town. They've always had a taste for the finer things, which is fine, everyone does, right? But they also have a way of, how should I put it, needing a lot. I've helped them out before, little things, a down payment for their first car, some money when their roof needed fixing after a storm. Always happy to help, because that's what moms do. But it felt like the requests were getting bigger, and the assumption that I would help was growing too. Chloe, she's a sweet girl, really, but she definitely enjoys the good life. She always has these sparkling ideas for their home, for trips, for all sorts of things. David just nods along, usually. Tonight, the conversation started normal enough. How was your week, Mom? David asked, twirling his pasta. Did you finally finish that puzzle? Almost. I laughed, just a few more pieces. It's trickier than it looks. Chloe chimed in, oh, I saw a beautiful new puzzle online, Eleanor. 1,000 pieces, a French countryside scene. You'd love it. She smiled, but her eyes kept darting to David. A little signal, I thought. I know those signals. Then, David cleared his throat. Mom, he started, a little too casually. Chloe and we've been doing some planning. For the house. Oh, I said, taking a sip of my water. My tummy got a little fluttery. This was it, I sensed. He pulled out his phone, a big, shiny new model. Look, he said, turning the screen towards me. It was a digital rendering, a blueprint, but fancy. It showed their living room, kitchen, and dining area, completely transformed. Open concept, huge island, high-end appliances, fancy lighting, a wall of glass looking out onto their yard. It was stunning, honestly. Magazine cover kind of stunning. Wow, I said, genuinely impressed. That's quite an overhaul, David. Isn't it amazing, Eleanor? Chloe leaned in, her voice full of excitement. We're thinking of knocking down the wall between the kitchen and the dining room, put in a massive island, maybe even a wine cellar in the basement. A wine cellar? I raised an eyebrow. Sounds like a big project. Must cost a pretty penny. David chuckled, a little nervously, I thought. Well, that's where we wanted to talk to you, Mom. He tapped the screen. We got the quotes back. It's a significant investment. We're looking at about $800,000. He paused, letting the number hang in the air like a heavy chandelier. My heart gave a little thump. $800,000. My jaw might have dropped a tiny bit. 800,000? I repeated, my voice barely a whisper. That's more than my house is worth. Yeah, but look at the value it'll add. Chloe quickly jumped in, pointing at the screen. It's an investment, Eleanor. It'll practically pay for itself. David looked at me, a hopeful, expectant look on his face. We were hoping, Mom, that maybe you could, help us out with this? Like, fund the project? He flashed that easy smile, the one he's used since he was a little boy trying to get an extra cookie. It'd really make our dreams come true. Silence descended on our table, thick and heavy. The clatter of forks from other tables suddenly sounded super loud. My quiet no started to form in my head, a tiny, defiant seed. My dreams? What about my dreams, my future? My security? That $800,000 would be almost everything I had saved up, everything Arthur and I had worked for. David, I began, my voice a bit shaky. That's a very large amount of money. I don't think I can just give you that. His smile faltered. Chloe's face tightened. But, Mom, David insisted, his voice losing its casual tone, you have your investments, right? And Arthur's pension. You're comfortable. The casualness of his assumption, the way he just expected it, it stung. It wasn't even a question, it was a demand hidden in a polite request. Comfortable, yes, I said, trying to keep my voice even, but that money is for my future. For my old age, for any emergencies. It's not just sitting there, David, it's carefully managed. Chloe put her hand on David's arm, a quick squeeze. Eleanor, we're your family. Who else would you help? We'd pay you back, of course, when the house value goes up. When? I asked, looking at her gently. Life doesn't always work like that, sweetie. And $800,000 is not something I can just casually lend out. It would compromise my entire retirement. David pushed his plate away, a huff escaping him. So, you're saying you won't help us? Not even a little bit? We're talking about our home, Mom. His tone was sharper now, a hint of accusation. He was definitely trying to make me feel guilty, right there in Mama Lena's. He looked around the restaurant, as if expecting people to agree with him. It felt like he was setting me up, making me look like the bad guy. The humiliation started to simmer, hot and unwelcome. My son was publicly guilting me for saying no to an exorbitant request. He smirked, that awful little smirk that said, she'll give in, she always does. A deep worry started bubbling up in my chest. This wasn't just about money anymore, it was about respect, about boundaries. Something clicked inside me, a quiet determination. I decided right then, I wouldn't just refuse, I would make sure this kind of expectation never happened again. I wasn't just protecting my money, I was protecting myself. The days after that dinner felt heavy. Like I was carrying an invisible weight around. David didn't call, and neither did Chloe. Not even a "how are you" text. Just silence. It spoke volumes, didn't it? It confirmed my fear. Their affection, or at least a big part of it, was tied to what I could do for them, what I could give them. It made my stomach ache, because he's my son, my only boy. But it also hardened my resolve. Arthur's words came back to me, clear as day. Ellie, stand on your own 2 feet. I knew I couldn't just say no and hope it stuck. David and Chloe, they had a way of circling back, of finding new angles, of subtly making me feel bad until I eventually caved. Not this time. This time, I had to secure my future, not just by holding on to my money, but by making it clear that it was mine and not up for grabs. I didn't want to hurt David, but I needed to protect myself from being taken advantage of. It wasn't about being mean, it was about being smart, about setting a firm boundary. First thing Monday morning, I called Brenda. Brenda's my best friend. We've known each other since high school. She's practical, no nonsense, and always tells it like it is. Bree, I said, trying to keep my voice steady, can you meet me for coffee? I need your wisdom and maybe a strong espresso. We met at our usual cafe, the Daily Grind. I spilled everything, the whole dinner, the $800,000, David's smirk. Brenda listened, her brow furrowed, nodding slowly. When I finished, she just squeezed my hand. Eleanor, she said, her voice soft but firm, you did the right thing. It's hard, I know, when it's your child. But you cannot, absolutely cannot, jeopardize your own security for their wants. But how do I make them understand? I asked, feeling a knot tighten in my throat. And how do I make sure they don't just keep asking? Brenda looked at me. You secure what's yours, Ellie. You make it untouchable. And then you teach them that your resources aren't their resources. That was the push I needed. Brenda mentioned her financial advisor, Mr. Harrison. He's a good man, very discreet, very sharp. He helped me sort out my portfolio after Frank passed. He'll give you honest advice. I made an appointment for later that week. Mr. Harrison was a kind-faced man, spectacles perched on his nose. I explained my situation carefully, without bad-mouthing David. I want to ensure my long-term financial stability, I told him. I want to consolidate my assets, perhaps sell off a less productive investment, and create a fund that is solely for my future, my healthcare, my comfortable retirement. A fund that is difficult to access quickly and certainly not visible to others. I didn't say my son, but he understood. He looked at me with an empathetic nod. It's wise to plan for your future, Mrs. Davies. Especially as we get older, having a solid, secure foundation is paramount. We spent weeks working together. It wasn't just about moving money around. It was about strategic planning. We decided to sell some older stocks I had, ones that weren't performing as well as they used to. We also restructured some of my bonds and savings into a specialized annuity fund that had a long-term payout schedule and significant penalties for early withdrawal. It meant that $800,000 was now locked down, earning interest, and safely out of reach for anyone, including me, to casually dip into for a luxury home renovation. It was a fortress, my own financial Fort Knox. This wasn't about punishing David, it was about building my own peace of mind and setting a clear boundary for good. It felt good, a weight lifting off my shoulders. I felt empowered, even though the thought of David's reaction still made my stomach clench. Meanwhile, the pressure from David and Chloe didn't exactly disappear. It just became more subtle and then, not so subtle. Chloe started posting pictures on social media, mood boards of their dream kitchen, floor plans, even screenshots of designer furniture. Each post felt like a little jab, a silent reminder of what I wasn't providing. Then David started calling, just to check in, Mom, but always steering the conversation back to how much the cost of living is these days, or how hard it is for young families to get ahead. He never directly asked again, not for a while, but the implication was heavy, like a dense fog. Then came the wait. What moment? David called, his voice strained. Mom, he said, I know you're busy, but Chloe and we've decided to go ahead with the renovation. We're taking out a loan, a big one. It's tough, but we have to make our house a home, right? He paused, then dropped the bomb. It just means we might have to tighten our belts a lot. And maybe we won't be able to visit as much, with all the expenses. My breath caught in my throat. He was using our relationship, my time with him, as leverage. He wasn't explicitly saying no money, no visits, but the message was clear. It hurt, deep down. It was a cold, calculated move. It solidified my resolve. This wasn't just about their home, it was about control, about emotional blackmail. I realized then that my quiet securing of the $800,000 wasn't just for me, it was to prove a point, to finally teach David that I was not an endless resource to be manipulated. I was ready. The fortress was built. That phone call from David, the one where he hinted at cutting back on visits because of their big loan for the renovation, stung more than anything he'd said at Mama Lena's. It felt like a low blow, using our connection against me. But it also clarified everything. My love for David was not a blank check, and it certainly wasn't a tool for him to manipulate me. The humiliation from that dinner had simmered into a firm resolve. I wasn't just protecting my money anymore, I was reclaiming my dignity and setting a boundary that was long overdue. I gave it a week. Let his words hang in the air, let him think his tactic was working. Then I called him. David, I said, my voice calm, almost unnervingly so, I'd like to invite you and Chloe over for dinner this Sunday. Just us. My treat. No Mama Lena's this time, I'll cook. There was a pause. Oh, he said, sounding a little surprised. Sure, Mom. That sounds nice. What's the occasion? No occasion, I replied smoothly. Just thought it was time we had a proper chat. Face to face. He agreed, a little hesitantly. I spent the next few days cleaning, cooking a simple but delicious meal, Arthur's favorite roast chicken, mashed potatoes, green beans. I wanted the setting to be familiar, comfortable, but beneath the surface, a quiet storm was brewing. I laid the table nicely, just like I always did when they came over. But on the small side table in my living room, tucked under a magazine, was the carefully prepared financial ledger Mr. Harrison had given me, detailing the new, impenetrable structure of my funds. $800,000, accounted for, secure, and out of David's reach. Sunday evening arrived. David and Chloe walked in, looking a bit wary. Chloe hugged me, a little stiffly. David gave me a quick peck on the cheek. "Smells great, Mom," he said, trying for normal, but his eyes darted around, probably looking for signs of distress or capitulation. We ate dinner. Small talk. The weather, Chloe's new job project, David complaining about traffic. I listened, smiled, and made sure their plates were full. When we were finished and I'd cleared the table, I invited them into the living room. "Let's sit," I said, gesturing to the sofa. I sat in Arthur's armchair, directly facing them. David cleared his throat. "So, Mom," he began, that familiar, slightly smug smile starting to form on his lips about our renovation. "It's really happening. We're starting next month. It's going to be a stretch, financially, a real burden." He sighed dramatically, looking at Chloe, who added a small, sad He was winding up for another guilt trip. I could feel it. He was smiling, thinking he was about to deliver another blow, probably waiting for me to cave and offer something. I let him talk. Let him lay out his whole sad story of financial woe, the struggles of young families, the huge commitment they're making. It was all a performance, building to his expected crescendo. And then he paused, a hopeful, expectant look on his face, waiting for me to speak, to offer, to apologize even. That was my moment. I reached over to the side table, picking up the slim, leather-bound ledger. It felt surprisingly heavy in my hands. David's eyes widened, just a fraction, as he saw it. His smile slowly, gradually faded. That was the wait, what, moment. He saw the ledger, the official-looking document, and his expression shifted from smug confidence to confusion, then to a dawning, terrible realization. "David," I said, my voice steady, no tremble, "Chloe. I want to talk about my finances." I opened the ledger to a marked page. "You both seemed very concerned about my financial well-being and how my money could help you." So, I took some steps. I showed them the entry. "As you can see here, I've secured exactly $800,000. Their eyes were glued to the page, then snapped to my face. Chloe gasped softly. David's joy actually dropped. His face was a mixture of shock and anger, but mostly, it was disbelief. He thought I didn't have it, or that I wouldn't secure it this way. "This sum," I continued, closing the ledger and holding it firmly in my lap, "is now safely invested in a long-term annuity fund. It's untouchable, David. It's for my future. For my old age, for any medical expenses, for my peace of mind. It cannot be withdrawn early without significant penalties, and it cannot be accessed by anyone but me." I met David's gaze directly. "So yes, David, I did secure $800,000. The exact amount you asked for, in fact. But I secured it for myself. Because I deserve to feel safe and secure in my own life. And because my money is not your money, nor is it a means for you to get what you want by guilting me." The silence in the room was deafening. David was speechless, his face red. Chloe looked down at her hands. The humiliation had shifted, not from me, but onto them. My revenge wasn't malicious, it was simply truth and boundaries. I hadn't taken anything from them, I had merely protected what was mine, and shown them that their tactics had failed. After a long, uncomfortable silence, David finally spoke, his voice hoarse. "Mom, I can't believe you would do this." "I did it, David," I responded, "because I love you enough to teach you that you can't always get what you want, especially by trying to make me feel small or selfish. You need to learn to stand on your own 2 feet, just like Arthur taught me." They left soon after, their goodbyes mumbled, their faces strained. It was a tough, painful conversation, but a necessary one. Weeks passed. Phone calls were sparse, but different. Less demanding. More respectful. David eventually called to say they'd scaled back the renovation, taking a smaller loan for essential repairs, not a luxury overhaul. He didn't apologize, not directly, but his tone was subdued. He started talking about saving up, about managing their own money. It was a small victory, but it was real. My $800,000 sits safely, a testament to my independence, a Fort Knox of my own making. It was a tough lesson for all of us, but standing firm felt right. Have you ever had to draw a line with family, even when it hurt? Share your thoughts below, I'd really love to hear.